Happy Monday to everyone. We are going to be getting this podcast episode starting in 2 minutes. So I hope you guys are having a beautiful, beautiful start to the day. Maybe we should get some tunes on to the background here. What do you reckon? I come into my Spotify now, and all I bloody have is fucking Baby Shark and Moana and all these different baby tunes. Anyway, hello Vincey, how are you, my man? Let's get started. We're going to be cracking this one on in just 2 minutes, guys. So let me know how your weekend has been. Hopefully this is coming through okay. I am tethering off my phone, and I'm going to explain why pretty soon. So good morning, guys. How's the morning treating you? So we got some kings in here. Look at these guys that are coming in already. Vincey Staben, how are you, my dude? I hope you are well, brother. We've got Bobby Gordon in here as well. Hello, Bobby. Bobby's in the house. I hope you had a good weekend, mate. Nico, how are you, my dude? Training hard. Sammy girl, what's going on? How are you, mate? Thanks for coming in live, Sammy. It's good to see you in here. Trent, good morning, my brother. What's going on? I hope you are good. Guys, can I just get a sound check? Let me know that things are coming through okay. Like I said, I am tethering on my phone at the moment, so I just want to make sure that before we start this episode, the signal is okay so that we can rock and roll. This is going to be a very cool episode, I'd suggest. Well, maybe cool's not the word, but certainly I'm probably a little bit reflective. You're great, Sammy. Sounds perfect. Fantastic. Pete Groves, good morning. Good morning. Thanks so much, guys. Well, in that case, I might get this one started. I think we are ready to rock and roll. So, jam down some coffee and all good in Canada. Yeah, Vincey, mate, to be honest, I'm going to be back there in April, mate. So pretty excited about the incoming summer, to be honest, because this Aussie summer is letting us down. Anyway, I do digress. So, guys, let's get started. All right, so on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast on this lovely morning. This is the podcast you come to when you're sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Now, this is going to be an interesting episode that I'm bringing you today, guys. I'm going to be having a bit of reflection over the passing of an Aussie legend. But first, I kind of want to say two things. Number one, she's upstairs trying to keep Ocean quiet for the point of this podcast, the duration, which, as you know, trying to keep babies quiet when you're in a small apartment is difficult. And happy birthday to my beautiful woman, Claudia. Happy birthday. I hope you had a good weekend. Thanks for all the love that you gave on the profile as well, guys. The second thing is this is like super, super weird for me to be doing this episode this morning. Aside from tethering, I want to tell you why. I am back here in an apartment that I own in Rosebery. Rosebery is next to Alexandria, just kind of, I guess it's still called, it's like the borderline of east and west, inner west in Sydney. And I'm back here in the apartment that I was physically, I would say, attached to for so many years. This is where I worked in my 9 to 5 job. Yeah, so Keel's in here saying, yep, worked in my 9 to 5 job, and I went through that struggle and trying to become a coach, and what did I want out of life. And it's just so weird being back here because everything is the same, but so much in my life is just so different. It's also kind of beautiful because this is where I was when Claudia, my partner, and I met. We made love in that bed upstairs. And it's kind of nice to bring Ocean back here and just kind of be in here. We're only here for 2 nights just before we fly up to the Sunshine Coast and try to get some sun. But it's just you feel the nostalgia when you go back to old places, and that's exactly what I feel this morning. We've got still our old decorations, and shout out to the people that have leased my apartment over the last couple of years. They've actually looked after it pretty good. The plants are dead, but other than that, I'm pretty happy. By the way, if you know anyone that wants to come to Sydney and move into a 2-bedroom house, there's a shameless plug. We are reletting the house now. Let's get started into today's episode. I want to talk about the happenings over the weekend. So the really, really sad news of the passing of a character which was, I think, probably 80% of Australian men. I wouldn't say idolized, but certainly kind of respected in some manner. We called him the King, Shane Warne. I was trying to explain to my partner about like the gravity of this death, and Americans and Canadians they don't know cricket at all, and so she's just disconnected from the process. I'm like, look, like this guy, like he was a crazy character. Every Australian kid grew up idolizing him. We were all, and I know, like, let me know in the comments as I'm doing this guys, because I know that you'll know exactly what I mean. We grew up trying to copy Shane Warne's way of kind of rolling the arm over and the wrist over, and it was like, I can remember backyard sessions with auto bins at each end as the wickets, and that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to emulate being like Shane Warne. I mean, statistically, I think he holds the second most amount of wickets from a leg spinner after Murali, but apart from that, many consider him, the world's best bowler. And why was he so liked? I think that perhaps there was this level of relatability about him. Men and even women across Australia certainly felt connected to Shane Warne, because despite the fact that he was this larger-than-life character that just knew everyone, he was just so relatable. He just didn't give a fuck, to be honest. He smoked and drank and had wild women and partied. But then there was the side of him that the moment that he stepped on the cricket pitch, he was just the king. And he dominated, and he made people look stupid with just how good he was. And love it or hate it, you feel connected to him. Part of you wanted to like him because of just who he was. My dad said to me yesterday, what did you think of him? And it's just weird to think that such a larger-than-life character has gone. The part that I want to talk about in this episode is more around how it made me feel, because I've got a sense that despite the fact that obviously I didn't know him personally, and many of our members of the Better Body Academy, of course, didn't know him personally, I'm guessing it, might have shook you up a certain way. And maybe you had some takeaways there, perhaps for, your own life and how you view your own life. And the reason for this is because Warne was only 52 years old when he died. So I'm just going to go over, for me, 3 points that have gone through my mind as a result of this happening. And I'm going to obviously be as respectful as I can, because, this is not a joke. At the end of the day, the man is a father and a son and a dad and all of those things. And so just reflecting on this, I think it's a good time, whilst if I can hit as many people as I can with this podcast across all the platforms, it might maybe just trigger something in you and get you thinking. So the first thing that come to me, point number 1, is, death can happen to us all at any point. We are not special. We're not special. Sometimes it's just very, unselective, and it doesn't just happen to people who are sick or people who have abused their health. It just happens randomly sometimes. And it made me question, what is my legacy? And so, if I think about this guy, like 52 years old, I'm nearly 40, I'm turning 40 this year. That's just 12 years away from where I am now. 12 years. Like, that's not very long at all. 12 years away from where I am now. Most of us don't want to have this conversation around death. And I understand why, because it scares us and the unknown portion of this. And so what happens is death takes a grip on us, and we instead deny it, or we ignore it as if it's not going to happen to us at any point. until something life-threatening happens to us, and then it grips us and we live in fear. This is just a really, like, as much as I understand why we deny it, I also think from a practical perspective, our acknowledgement and realization about the fragility of life, perhaps if we took that a little bit more seriously, actually we could create leverage to do and feel and love more in the moment. And so rather than running from death, we, understand that it's going to happen to all of us, and we leverage what we do while we're alive to live a better life, so that when it does eventually come to us, we've had a great life and we're not living in a sense of regret. I think the idea of, my daughter being, say, 14 years old with me dying at 52 and not being here anymore, like that just, I probably didn't actually until this happened with Warne. There's something about that it didn't really hit me until I thought, like 14 years old, leaving my family behind. My gosh. And so if you can get around this, I know that there are a number of men inside our academy that, number one, are older than 52. They're older than 52. I'm interested in, how that made you feel. Did you actually think about it to any deep level? How did it make you feel? How does it make you feel that you're now on a journey toward better health? Does it make you feel in any way regretful? I know that a number of men have, I would say the vast majority of men, when they put through their application to join BBA, they are doing so because although they want to feel great amongst themselves, they are not done with a life experience just yet. They want to be around with their kids and their grandkids, and that's their motivating, driving why. And so, for me, this one hit really hard that it can happen at any time. We are not special. And so I'm asking myself, as I'm driving down to Sydney yesterday, like, what is my legacy? What am I leaving behind for my family and future generations? What am I creating? What am I teaching them in the moment? So that's the first point I wanted to discuss. Now, the second point that I want to discuss goes to, I think, something that respectfully everyone probably at least had a passing thought about. And that was that obviously Warne was a known, party boy. And so it made me think a little bit more about, although there's a part of that we can all connect to, how many of us are indulging in kind of behaviors, perhaps habitually? We're not actually choosing to do them, but it's become a habit. And the point is, the longer that we prolong drinking and recreational drug use, the more damage that we do. Now, this is a really difficult topic to talk about, of course, because, not that his family is listening to this podcast, but there is a level of, I don't know if that was a contributing factor, the history there. I also don't want to be hypocritical. For me to be a proper leader, I have to be honest about my previous behaviors. I drank, I took drugs, and I did things that, I wanted to experience. I was not pressured in any way. But at a certain point, I become mature enough that I wanted to make some decisions for my future. And I started to go to asking myself, like, why am I doing these things? Like, why am I getting drunk? Or why am I taking pills? Or why am I doing this? Like, and I was never bad at all, to be honest, but I think it's pertinent that I should be honest, because I think not talking about these things is part of the problem. So treading carefully here, Warne died of a massive heart attack. So are you guys aware that the number one killer of certainly Australian men, and for that matter, men and women across the world, is heart disease. And heart disease is a collection of diseases which includes having high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and then going into things like heart attacks, which become the end stage of heart disease. The major genetics plays a major role, which is why your doctor will often ask you, have you had a family member that died of a heart attack or a stroke? So we can look, and if your cholesterol levels are high and your blood pressure is high and you've got the genetics running in the family, then medical intervention is usually a good thing. But the unsaid thing here, the thing that we can control, is not the genetics. We can't control the genetics. The huge factor in heart disease is lifestyle. It is. And it's coming down to having arteries that are chocked up with plaque and the blood can't actually run through. It's having, a heart that is tired and is not used to the stress that's being put upon it because we've not got outside of our comfort zones. It is the stress of life that is being put upon the body and the joints, and the heart is not in a position where it can handle all this extra stress. And so what worries me is even just being home with my friends and family. What worries me is that drinking is so ingrained into our culture that it's just like, it's fun when it's in the moment, and it is. And I'm not going to say that I was any different, but just plastering endless amounts of alcohol and or drugs, why are we actually doing that? Like, what is the behinds of that? We only do things for a reason. I think most of us just don't understand that it's a subconscious choice. We're not actually choosing to do these things. It's a product of the crowd that we are in and the habits that we've been living for a period of time. Now, if you are damaging yourself over and over and over and over and over again, weekend after weekend, and waking up and saying to myself, I'm never going to drink again. I need to get healthy. I've got to get off the fence. I've got to get started. Well, all the while, the reason that you're probably trying to do that is because there's some part of you that feels numb, or some part of you that you want to move away from having a certain feeling that you have when you are present with yourself. And for me, when I reflected upon this, for me, it was that I wanted to feel a sense of love, and I used alcohol and drugs as a way of connecting to my friends. We might list that as saying, well, I just want to have fun. Yeah, it's fun, but actually the feeling that I was missing and wanting was connection. And when I realized that I could get that same connection through a health promoting behavior, like going to the beach and having a swim, and then having a big healthy breakfast and a coffee down at Bondi or Coogee and Maroubra, when I realized that I could get to the exact same outcome through a different process, one promoted health, the other didn't, then I started to understand. And so it did make me think yesterday about, Warne's passing and he's kind of idolizing as a party boy. Whether that played a role or not, I don't know. But for you, what choices are you making in your life, which you're doing not necessarily consciously, but habitually, and you're doing them because you feel a certain way, and it's probably that you don't want to feel that way anymore. And so those vices are just ways to stop feeling. And there are much better ways to start feeling again and going deeper into your experience. The third and final point that I wanted to kind of raise is this. So given death happens, what is life all about? This is fucking heavy for a Monday, right? So apologies if you're just kind of listening to this and just waking up and going, well, what's this guy on about? But I want this to be a podcast that I can always go back to and reflect upon and get people to listen to, because I think it's important for me to speak a truth here. And so what is life all about? I can remember thinking back, I can vividly remember having thoughts around like 8, 9, 10 years old about like, what is the meaning of life? And I'd go into like levels in my mind about trying to think about like, what's the purpose here? Like, why are we even here? We're born and then we spend 10 to 20 years accumulating a bunch of like knowledge and studying. And then many of us spend the next 40 accumulating stress in a job that we hate, wishing for the weekends to get a comfortable retirement, and then die of poor health with lots of money in the bank account or not. Like, that just sounds, if you think about it in the way that I've just delivered it, we're born, we spend 20 years accumulating knowledge, we spend the next 40 stressing ourselves out about some point in the future that if we get to, we'll enjoy, but we can't enjoy it because we go so beaten up and bruised that we die early. Like, that to me just doesn't sound very fucking smart. And I think most of us are living that existence because it's not a conscious choice. No one has suggested to us that there is an alternative option. So it hasn't dawned on us. So why would we look towards an alternative option? Being back in this apartment, as I said, I can remember being here at this exact table, in this exact seat, being frustrated as fuck about my life and wishing that I could do something different. And the truth was that I just didn't have the courage to step up until a few years later. I get it. Like, I didn't hate my job. I enjoyed my job, but I certainly lived for the weekend. The weekend, let's get to the weekend. Oh, it's Thursday, it's Friday. Fuck it, I'm halfway there. Come on, go weekend Friday. Yes, finally, I don't have to do the thing that I don't want to do anymore. In fact, I can remember having a conversation with a coworker whose highlight of the day was being paid to take a 30-minute shit. Now, that sounds funny. Yes, it is. Okay, so I'm getting paid to do this shit. This is awesome. But if you think about that existence where you've got to think to yourself, the best thing that's happening to me today is taking a shit and getting paid for it, that's not a fucking very good existence. So for me, I can only conclude that life is about having an experience. This traveling that Cords and I do has become really, really hard to do with a baby. Having to haul around all this stuff and pack it down and pay for it, and we've got another one on the way. But the reason we continue to push and to do that is because I have connected that the meaning of life, and I'm not saying it is for you, but the meaning of life for me is to have an experience while I am here. I'm not doing that so I can tell you how much I've done. I don't care about what you think. I do it because I personally want to experience the full Monty as part of my own experience. And so if we look at King Warne, I think, he had some experience in life. Whilst he died young, he knew, Liz Hurley and Elton John and everyone had their phone numbers, and he partied, and he certainly fit a hell of a lot in. Now, one of the things that having good health does is allows you to experience more, both from a quality and a quantity perspective. Let me explain that. Quality and quantity. Quantity means, well, if you die at 52 years old and you, with better health, could have lived till 80, that means that you're missing out some 30 years of living. What could you experience in those 30 years when you're wiser and probably have more money to do things that you want to do? So there's the quantity perspective to this, but then there's the quality perspective. The quality perspective is every time I climb a mountain, right? I go for a bushwalk. I think to myself, half the world can't do this because they're not physically able, either through disability, which is why I see movement as such a thing that is to be gratitude. Like, wow, I can move. But other people, because their health has become so fucking bad that they just can't get up the hill. And they can't get to the top of the hill and look back down at both what they've achieved and the view. And that makes me sad to think that, your life is going to be cut short, both from a quality and a quantitative perspective, because you didn't do something more in the now. Members of the BBA understand exactly what I'm talking about because they experience a shift when you follow the plan and you get it done and you don't try to be perfect and you instead view movement and health as a privilege, not a birthright. All of a sudden, you get your life back. We've got people, and I hesitate to go into deep names, but the one that stands out to me is Dan Troutman, Terry, Christy, Travis, Amy Monks, these people that are winding the fucking clock back and adding not only years onto their life, but quality of life so that they can fulfill a purpose in their life, which whatever it is for them, great. But for me, I see it is as I am helping and the BBA is helping people to have more life experience, both in being able to do it over a longer period of time and what you can do while you're here based on your physical capacities. I got a message off who we call the King, John Timmons, who is over in a place called Lanzarote, which is some island off the coast of Morocco. He's doing a triathlon camp. This guy, a year and a half ago, was 135 kilograms and never lifted a weight in his life and got puffed running to the shops. Now he's doing a triathlon camp on a random island off the coast of Morocco. Like 35 kilograms down, 2 marathons, and practicing for a triathlon. Guys, this has been a long episode, but I just get so passionate that it brings me around to the mission. There is probably a lot to reflect on and learn about the passing of a great Australian man. And love him or hate him, you had to admire the way he lived life. And stepping back from that, I always ask myself, what is the lesson that you can take out of this? And they're the lessons that I took out of it, the 3 lessons that I took out of it, that death is going to happen, it's indiscriminate, and what is your legacy? Given death happens, well, what's life about? And what can you do now to live a better life, both in quality and quantity, by adopting a healthier lifestyle? Look, as a final point of this podcast, the process of change, the process of becoming healthy, it takes time. To think that you can undo 20 years of living a certain way in 16 weeks is absolutely ridiculous, which is why we're about to launch our elite program. But kind of second to that point, even though change takes time, this is the key. The decision to change can be made in an instant. You can, if you're watching this podcast or you're listening on at home on the replay, you can decide now, enough's enough. You can decide now, hang on, this podcast has triggered something in me. Maybe I can leverage death instead of waiting for it and denying it until I get there. Maybe this is the episode that you needed to hear to make you think, you know what, like some of these kind of self-sabotaging behaviors that I'm adopting, am I doing so out of conscious choice or am I just doing so because it's the crowd that I'm keeping? Maybe, and finally, after sitting on the fence for a period of time, you will get off the fence on your own transformation, be it, by yourself or of course in the incredible, incredible community that we've created and the replicable system inside of Better Body Academy. And if that's you, please send me a message. Guys, a big episode of Monday Mindset today. This has been the Better Body Academy podcast, the podcast that you come to if you're sick of the dumb diets, unsustainable workout programs. And guys, I love you, I respect you, and I'll see you in the next episode.